Okay, let's read the second requirement. In 2006, the Austin Brewery reported these production results. Okay, so we have all the information down here, and I'll copy that on the second sheet as we work it. And it says there are no variable cost variables. Fixed manufacturing overhead cost variances are written off to cost of goods sold in the period in which they occur. Compute the brewery's operating income when the denominator level is A, theoretical capacity, B, practical capacity, and C, normal capacity utilization. Okay, well, borrowing from part 1, I've jotted down the information again. So we were able to compute this from part 1. There's our budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead rate. So now I'm going to slide up so we have a little bit more room to work. Okay, now there's the information we need, a little bit of it, but then I jotted down the budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead from before, and there's the 3 different capacity concepts we're going to solve for. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is come up with the per barrel, and this is, by the way, per barrel, the budgeted variable manufacturing cost rate. So let me jot in here the budgeted variable. I'm going to abbreviate just so we can get this in this column. Cost rate. Okay, we'll center that. Underline this one as we've done with the others. But we have to compute it, and it's the same in all cases. How we come up with this is we say the budgeted variable manufacturing cost rate would be equal to the actual variable manufacturing cost, right, the $120,380,000, divided by the actual production in barrels. So we'll divide it by that 2,600,000. And once we have that, we just apply it across. Now, or apply it down, by the way. All right, I'm going to turn format it so that we get a dollar sign. It's the same number in every case. Once we have that, then we can come up with the budgeted total manufacturing cost rate. And we're simply going to add across, right? There's our fixed, there's our variable portion, so we sum across. Of course, now it doesn't want, my auto sum doesn't want to work. Here we go. And by the way, I only did one in copy. You know, with Excel, you could pick on all 3 and do it in one shot. Okay? And the sum would work. And then we want to format it the same way that we have here. So we'll do that. And that's part of our answer. All right, then next we have to come up with the fixed manufacturing overhead cost allocation. Okay. I'll abbreviate that. We'll center that as well. And this one would be equal to the 2,600,000 production barrels times what we had right there, which was our budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead rate that we computed based on different capacities. So we take that, the 2,600,000, I'm going to lock it in with an F4, so we always take it, even though I may copy the cell, times the 799. And I come up with an answer here. Now, I think what happened is this is actually being rounded, so I'm getting a slightly different answer than what I was expecting. Yeah, that's what is going on. So what I'm going to do is round this cell. I'm going to round G2 to 2 decimal places. And now maybe that number was 7.9897541, something like that. But now it's rounded, so I'll copy that down, reformat it. Now we're dealing with nice round numbers, and now that balances to a check figure that I have. Copy that down, right? So we're always multiplying the production, the actual production in barrels times the predetermined fixed overhead rate based on 3 different capacity concepts. And then from there we can compute the variance. So we have a fixed manufacturing overhead. I can spell this one out now. Sometimes my columns aren't wide enough to spell them out, but this time they are. Okay, and that variance then would be equal to the actual fixed manufacturing overhead we had, lock it in, minus what was allocated. Now, if actual exceeds what was what we allocated, then we say it's unfavorable. So we would put a U or UNF. I've seen both used. And then I can copy that down. And we see in all cases it's unfavorable. Okay? And that's part of what we need to do. Let's go back to the sheet and find out what else we need to do. We're working our way down to operating income with different denominator level capacity used. Boy, that's hard to say. So let me stage this a little bit, and we'll move on. Okay, now in the last second there you saw some things change on the screen. That's because I simply staged this problem so it won't run too long. But before we get to that, I want to show you that I did add this column, this comment here, this per barrel, so we know that these three columns here are all on a per barrel basis, and then we're going back to dollars in this column. So really I should put those in dollars. Okay, well the last part says produce an absorption costing income statement under these three different ways. And I've gone ahead and typed some things in ahead of time so this can go fast for us. So let's bring a couple to light. In all cases, the revenues were 163,200,000, and that came from the problem. Okay, I may have to adjust the columns here to get this to fit. That looks like that'll work. Okay, and then we compute cost of goods sold, and the way we're going to do that is we'll start off with beginning inventory, then we'll add in the variable manufacturing cost, okay? Then we'll add in fixed manufacturing costs that we allocated based on the different capacity, utilization, or different denominator effects. That will give us a cost of goods sold available for sale. Then we will deduct ending inventory. This should not look too unfamiliar to you. And then we'll come up, subtract the ending inventory, but then we need to add in any unfavorable variances or subtract out any favorable because what they told us in this problem was any variances are written off to cost of goods sold. So that's where, this line here, line that I've got the mouse on now, that row is where we'll add in the variance into cost of goods sold. And from there, we will calculate a gross margin. We will add and subtract out other costs and generate an operating income. Okay, well, what was beginning inventory? Let's shoot back here and see if we can come up with that amount. I think they provided it to us. I just don't see the dollar amount. Let me see if we can find it here. Yeah, there it is right there. The actual, I'm sorry, beginning inventory is 0. Okay, so we start off beginning inventory is 0. So we drop in the 0 in all three places, right? Then the variable manufacturing cost was equal to the 123.80, right? So we can copy that across, or just so long as we get it in there. The fixed manufacturing overhead cost allocated comes from, let me slide up. Where's our allocation amount? I'm sorry, it's right there in front of me. That 2774, right? And so this one comes from that 31,200. And finally, a normal capacity comes from that 39 million, right? So cost of goods available, we could underline this and just simply sum. Hopefully this will work right. Yep, 141. Then we deduct ending inventory. And ending inventory is a little bit complex. Okay, so under theoretical capacity, we would have to take the 200,000 units in ending inventory right there times the budgeted total manufacturing cost rate that we used. Okay, so for theoretical capacity, it's going to be at 54.29. for practical capacity, we take the 200,000 times the 5830, right? You can see where I'm grabbing it. I know I'm going a little bit fast here. And then we will take that 200,000 again times the 6130 for normal capacity, and we get different amounts. And then I don't want to underline this just yet, or do I? No. What I do want to do is show that as a negative amount. So let me change the equal sign at the beginning of all of those formulas to a negative. And then that way I can sum going down and we will be subtracting ending inventory the way we should be. Okay, so adjustment for variance then is equal to the amount of the variance that we would record under the various differences. Okay. Alright, so you see the various variances depending on what was our denominator level. And then we can compute cost of goods sold, which would be the sum of cost of goods available. And now we're adding a negative, so it essentially subtracts out ending inventory and adds in all the unfavorable variances that we already computed. Okay, so I can copy that over and draw an underline on those three. And we now have cost of goods sold, and of course gross margin is simply the net sales. We only have revenues in this case, less the cost of goods sold. Copy that over, right? And in this case there was no other cost given, and so operating income then is going to be equal to those two, or which we could have summed as well. In this case I just entered plus the two cells. And what we come up with is different operating income under the different denomination bases based on the different capacity utilization that we're using. So let me double underline that, turn that to $1, and that's the end of part 2. Okay, thanks everyone.